Hello, everybody, to the fourth episode of Truth Be Bold. Today we have a very special guest, one of our first cohort members from Bold Serbia, because we also have two programs. We have one in Bosnia, and last year we started Bold Serbia program for young entrepreneurs. And Uros is actually one of the founders of Nuts, one of the financial literacy apps. And Uros, welcome. So please tell us more about your recent successes. What have you been up to? And welcome.
Thank you, Anya. Thank you for having me today. Hey, everyone. My name is Uros. I'm actually the founder of Nuts, as Anya mentioned. Nuts is a mobile application for managing finances, and just recently, about 2 weeks ago, we had our official launch on app stores.
Congrats, Uros. I'm really proud of that.
Thank you.
Can you tell me, since you've, as you say, you recently launched Nuts and it's been super crazy, it's been a mayhem, what have been three most important lessons you've learned since launching Nuts and being kind of going live, to say?
Definitely. Interesting question, because it's been only like 2 weeks since our launch, so there is not much I can say about that. Probably the most important actually lesson that I can conclude from that is customer feedback. So people are coming to me nowadays and saying, "Hey, I downloaded your app. I really like it." I say thank you, but I always try to ask them, "Okay, cool. Do you want to sit for a couple of minutes, maybe talk about the app? What do you like? What you don't like?" And based on that, I try to iterate over the product and improve it if I can.
That's
So still
really good
focusing
to
on
hear.
customer feedback.
I guess it's one of those questions that I'm going to be asking you in 6 months' time, and it's going to be a new set of lessons learned. But as I've said, you are one of the first cohort members for Bold Serbia. You have been developing this app ever since then. So, based on the things you've seen, what have been one of the most important lessons and personal and professional qualities that you have developed in the recent year? And you think it's something that a young founder actually must have in order to have a successful business?
Probably adaptability, I would
Mhm.
say, because in this fast-paced moving environment, you really need to adapt to different changes, and you need to constantly improve, change this, change that, and you need to learn how to do that. So definitely, I would say adaptability. That's been the biggest lesson for me.
Okay. And if I'm correct, you also have a co-founder to Nuts. So there's two of you. Can you tell me what are some of the ways that your co-founder has inspired you and challenged you and like made you grow as a person and have a, kind of tell us more about the team dynamics. Why is it important to have a good team member when you're starting a business?
Correct. There is actually two of us in the team. My colleague Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Probably the biggest thing in our team is our compatibility, because
Mm-hmm.
this is not our first startup together. We've been doing projects together for like, I would say 4 or 5 years. So definitely we learned how to focus on different parts of the business, different aspects. So for example, in Nuts, I myself focus on development and tech part, while Georgia focuses on user growth and marketing. And that's probably the main lesson and main thing that we have together, because that allows me to take my time and focus on that thing, and not I'm not bothered with other stuff like marketing and user growth.
Okay, so it's about this, equal division of labor in a sense, and trying to not try to do everything all the time, but actually managing your own tasks and being able to trust enough somebody else that they're going to do their part of job. So I guess that's a big game of trust in a sense of being in a team.
Correct, correct,
Um,
correct.
so, what is the main motivator for you and Georgia these days? I know that you put in a lot of work, a lot of hours, and sleepless nights, but how do you keep going despite, running on fumes?
I would say that my biggest motivation is actually working on innovation. So innovative products are a big thing for me. I like to constantly create new things. I'm constantly building something, and that is a driving factor for me, because I love to sit down and create something new. And for Georgia, I'm not sure what can I say. It's probably best to ask Georgia exactly, but I like to think that he thinks the same way as I do about these things. We both like innovation.
And tell me why financial literacy? How come you decided to delve into these waters?
It's a really long story, but I'm going to give you a short breakdown, I guess. Well, at the end of the last year, I realized that there is not that doesn't exist application like for managing finances like it exists in US, let's say, for example. And I saw a really good market fit. So I wanted to create something first for me. And I like this concept of easy finances. So I sat down, created some application that I really liked. And then I showed it to a couple of people. And I realized that other people like that concept too. So I concluded a little survey of about 100 or 200 people. And I realized that people actually do have this problem of not knowing how to manage finances. So I sat down and said, okay, let's create something that we can place on the market and let's see how can we generate something out of it.
Amazing. And in this
Coming from my story.
conversation, from what I've heard, it's so important to do that customer discovery. And as weeks have gone by and all the fellows we've talked to, they were like, I wish I've done customer research sooner and like put more attention to it. So besides the adaptability and doing this customer research, what would be one of your first advice that you would give a young founder who's going to take their idea to an MVP stage? What are some of the key steps they need to make?
Definitely. I think that a lot of new founders come from a perspective of first creating a product, which is not necessarily bad. I did that myself, but I created something for myself first that I liked. Then I realized that it has potential. But I would recommend for people to actually sit down before creating anything and conclude that there is actually a problem that they're trying to solve, because that is something I struggled with in my previous startup. We first focused on creating a product, which, as we realized later, was bad. So I would recommend that people or new founders actually sit down, conclude a survey, conclude one-on-one meetings with the people that are facing that problem without even mentioning their product. So just concluding that they do have that problem. And based on that, they should iterate and realize how to create a product that helps them.
Yeah. I love that Uros is giving this step-by-step guide. So if anybody ever needs any advice, reach out to Uros. Uros, speaking of your recent entrepreneurial journey for the last 2 years with, as you mentioned, some of the setbacks you've had with your previous startup and some of the successes you had. So how do you actually relate to the notions of succeeding or failing? If you can share more about that.
Definitely. I think that success is not something that you can define with words. Success definitely comes internally and what you feel like is success for you. For example, this launch of application right now is a success for me, and it is only one milestone. But milestones are something that I don't really see as an end. You know, there is always the next milestone that you can reach. So I don't see this launch of the application as overall success, but I would say that reaching those milestones and fulfilling yourself is actually what I define as success.
That's really good to hear. And what about these setbacks that every entrepreneur is meant to face? How do you relate to that?
Yeah, so this is an interesting concept for me because failures and setbacks are not something that I look as a negative thing, because after every failure or rejection or step back, I sit down and think, why did it happen? And I see it as a big opportunity to learn. And based on that information, you can iterate and move and learn how to not fail the next time.
That's really good to hear because from the conversations we've had with young entrepreneurs, so many of them say, okay, we are facing these, difficulties of getting our business off the ground. We don't have really a infrastructure that we can use to build our businesses from. And I also wanted to ask you, since you kind of sit back and you strategize this, these setbacks as a learning opportunity, what are some of the tools you think young entrepreneurs need in Serbia or in the Western Balkans that you might have seen in the US, but wish could be replicated in your ecosystem?
Are we talking about software tools?
for you, what is important? It can be a general sense of what do young entrepreneurs need, or maybe specifically for your role, other
Definitely,
developers.
since I come from a tech background, when someone says tools, I always think immediately software tools, websites. So I'm going to talk from that perspective.
Mm.
I like to read a lot, and I think reading helps a lot in this environment of startups. For example, I recommend to everybody medium.com because on that website you can read a lot of great articles on how different startups succeeded or failed, and based on that you can learn a lot. Other than that, I think having some type of board where you can start strategize with your teammates is great. So for that I use
Mhm.
Miro.com. And speaking from a general aspect of ecosystem in, for example, Serbia, I think that there's a lot of incubators right now and accelerators that help startups to get off the ground and learn how to do things and get their product to the markets and learn how to generate revenue.
Great. And as our last question, we like to ask our guests, what is like a truth or a reality they've learned on their entrepreneurial journey? So I know you've covered a lot today, but if there's anything else you wish you've said, that would be great to hear.
Cool. So there is actually not a thing that I was like, okay, I didn't know that this thing is like this or something like that.
Mhm.
But I love this quote from Elon Musk that I heard a couple of years ago. I think that his friend said that uh, doing a startup is like staring into the abyss and eating glass shards, and that is really how you feel when you're creating something out of the blue because you're trying to get something that is not even existing. You don't know nothing about it. You don't know if people will use it. You know how to generate money, but you're still sitting down and trying to do that. And it really explains the whole process like that.
I think that's been probably one of the most succinct summaries of what it means to be an entrepreneur, and I'm really happy to hear people's reactions to that. So, Uros, thank you so much for your time today. I'm really glad we had a chance to catch up and talk a bit. And I'm going to recommend to everybody who needs help with their financial statuses, like I do, to download.